You know me, like if I go to a place and I know it's not Pepsi, I instantly know I'm drinking I'm drinking beer. That's like my next go-to. It is if there's none of that, you know, then it's gotta go to beer. So let's see what he goes to. Let's welcome to the show, to Television Radio, the one, the only, the quintessential Stud Muffin himself, Mr. Joel Gertner. What's going on, buddy?
Well. Well, what's up, guys?
Joel, you know, I said this earlier.
I'm on Totally Driven Radio. This is so awesome.
It's only taking you 4 years, man.
In my head of you jumping up and down and waving those hands.
Yeah, doing my floppy arm happy dance. Yeah, man.
There you go.
Pleasant Thursday night, gentlemen.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So here's a question for you, and this is what we were just discussing. Mr. Jannetty is a very dedicated Coca-Cola person.
Okay.
Meanwhile, I'm a very dedicated Pepsi person. Which persuasion of cola do you prefer?
Oh, man. Gosh, I would have to be contrarian and go with something like Dr. Pepper or Snapple, or just to keep the conversation going. Because you guys have probably done the whole Coke versus Pepsi 1980s, rock and roll with soda wars, you know, I can't take it anymore. All that gaga's probably been done. So if I'm going to interject into the conversation, and, you know, it's an A and B conversation already, so if I'm going to become C, then it would probably have to be some sort of off-brand. But I'm not sure. I can tell you this much. I once drove a Denny's waitress crazy. In case this is a story that I haven't told on a previous Totally Driven Radio appearance, or even if I've told it already and, you know, maybe we have a new listener or two, they might appreciate this. You know, every once in a while, we would go to Denny's for dinner when everybody else in the world is having breakfast. It's like 5:45 in the morning, because that's the Dudleyville promos weren't actually, and I know it's like a lot of people, it's December, they're just processing that Santa Claus isn't real, doesn't exist, whatever. So this might be too much. It might be overload, but if you've come this far, like if already you've heard that Santa Claus isn't real and you're still listening, then just like grab the arms of your chair and process this. Dudleyville was actually under the trestle right by Swanson and Rittner outside the building in South Philadelphia. And the way we got that perfect golden hour hue of darkness was to do it just before sunrise, go last on the entire roster, and shoot our promos at like 5:15 in the morning. So if I had $1 for every time I've seen sunrise eating dinner through a Denny's window, but I digress. So listen, I regret nothing. I'd do it all again. So we're at Denny's. Now, this one waitress, right, like, I'm not into it. Not for dinner. Not at 5:45 in the morning. I'd rather be having breakfast at Denny's, obviously, at 5:45 in the morning. But she's not even into being there. And she's there professionally. It's her job. Like, now I'm off the clock, and I'm in her house. Now I'm a tourist. So I'm not trying to be an asshole. I'm just trying to get fed. So she asked me, as one of the last things that she's like, what do you want to drink? Now, I always have the beverage selection scoped out in case the waitress turns out to be a dud. So when she asks me what I want to drink, I say, do you have orange slice? No. Do you have Welch's grape? No. Do you have Fresca? No. Now the Philly's coming out of her. Now I can tell, like, what block from what part of Philly, because I can hear the accent. You know what I mean? Because now she's treating me like family. She's like, now. I'm like, all right. I'm like, and I go through a litany, like a whole bill of goods, like a whole laundry list, everything. And then finally I go, do you have Lipton Brisk iced tea? And I can see her wipe away the beads of sweat from her brow and be so thankful that this journey, this quest the worst part of her worst night ever on the job is coming to an end. And she says, yes, we have Lipton Brisk iced tea. And then I retort 3 minutes into this whole farce. I say, great, I'll have a water. That used to get over with the boys like you wouldn't believe. I think even if I didn't have talent, which arguably I may or may not, I think I would have stayed on the active roster just for being able to whip one of those out every 3 months.
Yeah, boy. I wouldn't have had a good poker face on that. I'd have bellied off on that one, right in front of her.
Aside from stuff like that, I'm a real decent guy. Depends who you ask. Don't ask my wife too often. 9 times out of 10, no agreements there. But beyond that, I'm a pretty okay person. Hey, what's going on with all of your Thursday nights? Are you guys good?
Yeah. Every Thursday
Good.
we're here. We're here live. We're having a blast. We're being totally driven. We're talking to all types of people. We're learning about things. Like earlier we were talking, and we have a girl, Kristen Berg, who calls in every week. And in the first hour, it gives us all the Hollywood news out there from Hollywood, the scoop and the dirt and all. And we had a very in-depth discussion about Scientology earlier. I mean, that might have been something of interest that you would have really liked to have joined in on.
I am interested in that. I've watched the Leah Remini special from a few months ago or whatever it was, a few weeks ago. And then I've watched maybe 1 episode or 2 episodes, whatever's aired so far from the weekly deal.
Yeah, that's exactly what we've been talking about. That whole scenario, that whole just situation, it's just insane.
That's the only religion that takes out a Super Bowl ad. That's true. That's actual trivia. Last year, that was the only major organized religion that actually paid whatever it is these days, the $3 million, $4 million, to get a Super Bowl ad.
Wow.
Yeah.
Think about that for a second. I wonder if they made that money.
Prior to that, you got to go back to the year 2000, WWF, I think. Those are the only religions that people would ever say they subscribe to that have ever had Super Bowl ads. Scientology and the World Wrestling Federation.
The scary part is I could picture some wrestling fans being Scientologists.
I subscribe out of Scientology and the World Wrestling Federation to one of those as a religion. I will not say which one, and I will not confirm or deny.
Oh man, Joel's on fire. Which I got to see Joel a couple of weeks ago. He did now that was your first stand-up show, right?
It was. God bless. There were a lot of people there in Philly that night. Like in Philadelphia, a couple million people. In the room with us, there were only about 12 people. But out of the couple million, thank God, we got a dozen. If it was a town like San Francisco that only had an actual, in-city population of 800,000, it might have just been me and they, and it might have been something more similar to this. It was kind of like this. It was about 75% as funny.
But it was a fun time. It was a fun time, and the thing I wanted to know, because when I first heard about it, I thought to myself I could totally see this. I can totally see Joel doing stand-up, and I was I wonder if that was something that was ever in the back of your mind early on, when your character really started taking off. Did you ever, or even before that, ever think or have aspirations to do that?
Kind of. That was the foundation behind it. What really sealed the deal and solidified it is I work from home. I'm freelance, independent contractor, 1099 guy, whatever. So my wife is not. She works in the city. She's got a job, in a building, her own desk, everything like that. Real professional-like. So one day I was saying to myself, how I walk around my apartment and every once in a while I'll see something on cable news and it'll piss me off. And it pisses me off so much, it's so divisive, it's not something that you could put on Facebook. it's like maybe a topic that shouldn't go on Facebook. So I just kind of like hash it out. I just like get to business, just me, myself, and I. Like, hey, between you, me, and the lamppost, except you is me is me, and the lamppost is my cat. And these 4 walls. And I figure, you know what, Joel? If this is what you're going to be doing 40 hours a week anyway, unpaid, why don't you just do a stage show and pretend you're on stage in a venue that's charging admission? And then it's even better when you're actually on, you know what I mean? So it's like, if you're going to do it, you know, I don't half-ass anything. Bay and everybody at Totally Driven, I want you guys to know, especially because the name of the show is Totally Driven, I don't half-ass anything. I put my whole ass into everything I do.
Oh. So let's ask this then. Who in the world of stand-up comedy can we say put an influence on Mr. Gertner?
Oh, man. Gosh. Oh, man. George Carlin, Sam Kinison, Andrew Dice Clay, probably Bill Hicks, who I got into later, probably Mitch Hedberg, who I got into later, a little bit of dirty, a little bit of observational, a little bit of, you know, a little bit of genius. Not too much. People don't like to laugh at the person they perceive is the smartest guy in the room.
Right.
So, you know, I kind of try to, you know, I try to be self-deprecatory in case, you know, hopefully you've picked up on that. Or you think I hate myself. Either one's funny. One's healthy, one's unhealthy as a comic. But I'm trying to figure out which is which. But I have been told at the class I take. But, no, man, you got to learn from the greats, you know, just like I did with wrestling and with wrestling managers and studying guys like Keenan and Cornette and Paul E. and Jimmy Hart and all the great managers, and just like studying Finkel for the ring announcing. You have to just learn from the ones that came before you, emulate them without imitating them, and, you know, it's just like wrestling, you know. You see the sky because you've stood on the shoulders of giants.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, with the wrestling, did you ever want to actually be a wrestler?
No. I knew I couldn't. I mean, I think because that's maybe one aspect, one out of maybe one in my life, where I've been a complete realist. And I took one class once at a wrestling school, and I don't think I needed to get it's kind of like I didn't need to read the fable to know the moral, but I took the class anyway, and and quickly realized that that's not where my bread was buttered. But where it was helpful was, like, for me as a color commentator and analyst now, where taking the class was helpful is, like, let's say I'm calling Sabu doing this crazy aerial move, right? This thick moonsault to the outside, or whatever it is that he's doing at age 50 that the person sitting home watching, you know, is half Sabu's age and unable to do. What I'm able to do is not only put that over, but go deeper one level and say, and if you've never gone to wrestling school or even stepped into a wrestling ring, just know that that moonsault is nothing, because not only couldn't you do something like that, but you wouldn't be able to run the ropes without pain, without soreness, and without welts the next day. And I go into all the different things like taking back bumps, running the ropes, and everything I did in the simple first 2 hours, the first, last, and only 2 hours that I ever trained. I went through how all that put me out of being a wrestler, and I explained that before you can ever dream of doing what Sabu just did, understand that you could not do any singular thing that you've seen Sabu do in the last 12 minutes. So from that point, it was great for me to take the class. Other than that, it was a complete waste of 2 hours of my life.
You know, it's funny, too, because I had totally forgotten, and you had mentioned it at night stand-up, that I totally forgot the whole like ring announcing thing for a second. Like as soon as you said it, like I was like, oh yeah. But then I forgot that you used to do like all the luchador matches. You used to call them, and you like knew all the different languages and all. I was like, how the hell does he know all this stuff? Like you were like a whole unknown thing. Like it just like blossomed into this like incredible persona.
I think I have the great honor of being the only person in ECW and maybe in the world of pro wrestling who has done straight up ring announcing, like neutral, Howard Finkel style ring announcing, heel ring announcing, like I did for the Dudleys, for Shane, for Taz, FBI, right? Axel and Devon, heel ring announcing. Spanish language ring announcing for Lucha, in Lucha style, like Arena Mexico style. Japanese language ring announcing, because when Damian came in, Damian Seis, he came in as a Japanese talent born in Mexico. So he came in off of like War or FMW or the tours that he had been on previous to ECW. So he got a Japanese and Spanish intro. So that's 4. And then the last style to be all 5 fingers on the hand is almost like impersonation, like impression ring announcing. Because there was one day at a spot town in Louisiana, we didn't have a ring announcer. And usually if we didn't have a ring announcer, we found a ring announcer. So we couldn't find a ring announcer. So I was working with the Dudleys in the main event on that shot, on that 4 shot, on that swing. So we couldn't find a ring announcer at all. So I volunteered and said, if you can't find anybody, we'll figure out a way, I'll do it. And they're like, but how are you going to do, because I was managing the Dudleys. They were like, you could do it behind the curtain. I was like, okay, I'll do it behind the curtain. Can I have a little fun with it? They're like, yeah, do it behind the curtain. Nobody knows it's you, so have a little fun with it. So what have a little fun with it meant to me was I did one match as Finkel. I did one match as Gary Capetta. I did one match. There was one match that Tommy Dreamer was in where I put him over to the moon, sun, and stars and back until every last cow came home. I said that Tommy Dreamer, in his off time, helped orphan children. He was working on a cure for cancer. Like the same way I would load up the Dudleys intros with all the heel shit, I loaded up Tommy Dreamer's intro like he was a saint, like he was God's last gift to humanity. So I think I have the distinction of being the only person that's ever done those 5 different styles of ring announcing.
Now the languages, did you know any of the language before you did those calls, or did you actually sit and learn them to call them that way?
No, I knew them. I took Spanish from 7th grade on in school, and then also freshman year of college. So I took 6 years of Spanish, and while I was taking it, I was also watching AAA and CMLL Lucha Libre on Galavision.
Okay.
So I was listening to the actual Mexican ring intros while I was actually learning the language itself at school. So, the one helped me with, patterning it and knowing what to say, how, and when. And then actually learning Spanish helped me have a decent accent to where it sounded authentic enough that one night I was leaving the ECW arena, and one of the South Philly local ECW loyal faiths screamed out to me, "Hey, Boricua!" And I screamed back, "Nah, just took it in high school."
Okay, so what's Boricua mean?
Boricua is Puerto Rican. It's essentially a greeting call. It just means Puerto Rican. It's kind of like a portmanteau hybridization of the words that make up Puerto Rican in kind of Spanish slang. Yeah, it's kind of like Spanglish.
But you were accepted then, so that's a good thing.
Yes. I was a member of the tribe. That's the goal in life, is to be the member of as many tribes as possible so that you have as many friends and acquaintances as possible, while at the same time not ever wanting to belong to any club that'll have you, Groucho Marx style.
That's, it's
a delicate dance,
all these
man.
It's
a real, it's a thin line, man. It's a fine balance, but yeah.
Too funny. Now the Japanese, I mean, how did you learn that?
The Japanese, I also took in school. I took it freshman and sophomore year of college. And the original plan with that was to do the second half of junior year as a study abroad and to live and learn and hopefully love in Tokyo. The loving would have probably happened in Roppongi, where I think there's a lot of Japanese chicks that love American dudes. But the living and the learning would have happened at, like, some university in Tokyo. And never happened. Never happened. And after junior year, I started with ECW full-time. I ran off and joined the circus. So who needs Roppongi? Right?
Exactly was Cornell Zero. Yeah. Now, I guess you presented that to Paul, that you'd be able to introduce those matches that way?
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, that was good.
That is wild.
Because that's what it's all about. Any kind of labor relationship, I think, wrestling or otherwise, you just kind of, hey, I can do this trick, and then, great, I'm employed for another 13 weeks, guaranteed. And then you keep going until...
Now, the whole Quintessential Stud Muffin, as that persona took shape and formed and just truly became a huge part of ECW. I mean, every show was you coming out and doing your thing, and then later becoming part of the Dudleys and everything else. It just took over. Like, I was blown away by it.
Thank you for that. God, that sounds better coming from you. See, if I would have said verbatim what you just said, it would sound cocky. But from you, it sounded perfect. Thank you.
I can put it this way. Like, I was there 95 and 96 in the extreme part of it. And those, that year and a half I was there, I feel like I was part of the best time of ECW with all the top things. So I got to see you really come from nothing and then form, and then after I had left, I got to watch you now on a screen do what you did, and really it had me marking out for you, because it like I said, for me, you came from nothing. You came from a person who was hanging around, and then next thing you know, you're starting to do ring announcing. I remember sitting there. I used to sit at that freaking monitor every time at the arena, and I was glued to that screen, and I was always trying to sit next to, like, Foley or somebody so I could hear what they were saying as they were watching everything and learn stuff from them. But I remember you calling that Lucifer Max and being like, how the fuck did he do that? Like, where did that come from, So it was just like, I got to watch you evolve and grow, and very proud of you. I mean, I was just very happy for you.
Thank you, man. Yeah, it's weird. A lot of the changes in, like, my obligation to the company and what position I was in, a lot of that was just as much a step forward as it really also was pragmatically a step sideways. Just something else for me to do because I needed to be doing something new, When I went from being, I started as timekeeper, part-time ring announcer. And then when Bob Ortiz took a sabbatical, I became the primary ring announcer at one point for a few months. And then he came back. Now, when he came back, there was no argument. He was the primary ring announcer again. That was expected by everybody, including me. So then there was a step sideways, and the step sideways was doing some of the heel ring announcing and doing character development and everything else. And really, even in going from timekeeper to part-time ring announcer, heel ring announcer, foreign language ring announcer, and then manager,
of the Dudleys, and then color commentator. In almost every step of the way, maybe every step of the way, it was just as much a step forward as it was a step sideways. Because me going from working with the Dudleys to co-hosting TNN, excuse me, was because the Dudleys signed a contract with the WWF. So They were leaving, so I couldn't work with them anymore. At the same time, we were starting on TNN 3 months later. So, and I happened to live local to the studio, relatively, like driving distance. So I became the co-host of TNN.
Wow. Now, did you ever have talks with WWE to go up there with them or to do any work with them?
During ECW, like to leave ECW?
At any time. While in ECW or after ECW closed? Or
After it closed, I did the one show. I did the first ECW reunion show, the first of the 2 one-night stands in 2005. The one that did not roll into ECW on Sci-Fi. So I was on contract to WWE for the weekend, for Saturday, Sunday, as a freelancer for that. Prior to that, there was at one point, right around the time, give or take, that the Dudleys left, right around kind of, I think, 99-ish, 98, 99, 2000, right in there. There was some interest, and I spoke with somebody within WWE. I spoke with Terry Taylor about, just different stuff like a creative idea that they had for me and money and stuff like that. I was loyal to ECW. It wound up being something to think about. It kind of slowly maybe was on the table at the time where TNN became a reality and was offered to me. I'm trying to think of the chronology. I'm trying to be as true and honest to what happened and remember all the different chronology because it was a crazy time in that kind of triangle, three-pronged war between WWF and WCW and us. But yeah, long story short, they were interested. I was interested. At the same time, I was loyal to ECW and had the offer, I think, before I either would or wouldn't accept. Long story short, it played out the way it played out. TNN happened, the Dudleys left. I was offered the TNN spot, which came with a 3-year guaranteed salary biweekly contract. It was downside. It played out the way it played out. No regrets. I would love to work again in a longer term capacity going forward for WWE. But everything just, the same way like we were saying before, some of the stuff that's a step forward is a step sideways. So the same way it can be argued that part of the reason why I got the TNN gig was because I lived local. Who knows? Mm-hmm. I don't know this to be true or false, but if Cyrus lived in Connecticut and I lived in Canada, maybe he would have done TNN and I would have called the pay-per-views. You know what I mean? You never know how it will play out because there's the creative stuff that you can see on the surface, but then you have to skim the surface and there's all the business and logistics behind it. So when you take the business and logistics into account, there was interest on both ends at one time for WWE. I don't believe they ever pulled the interest. I don't believe I ever said no. I just think I organically became the co-host of ECW on TNN.
Right. Still, I mean, that's still a huge honor.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Now, how about, as you started doing your poetry, we'll call it, and your wells, and it's Joel, it is I, Joel, and your whole spiel, and then Gertner.
I love that you call it poetry. Flattery will get you everywhere. You can bypass my Craigslist ad now and just let you know what I mean. If you're calling it poetry, man, it's close enough to the weekend. Just come on over and, gosh, that's a great compliment. Poetry, I mean, that's like, only the classics, the epics, the icons, only the legends create poetry. Everybody else, it's just like, dick jokes and limericks and like, working blue and sex schlock and whatever else. But poetry, that's reserved for, like, Dice. Like we were talking about Dice. Like Andrew Dice Clay does poetry. You know what I mean?
Right.
Mother Goose had a shot. Dr. Seuss did okay. But, like, to be put in, like, in that kind of echelon and caliber is, like, flattering as hell for just from, some kid from Brooklyn that's trying to do good,
Nothing for nothing. And I was even thinking this, too, earlier, like, when I was putting stuff together. I'm like, you should do in stand-up a segment, like how Dice would do his nursery rhymes. There's no reason why you can't do a segment for a few minutes of all those different, poetry. Poetry time with Joel Gertner. There you go.
That would be amazing. On like through what avenue though? Like on what kind of show?
On any show. You could you should do it like a daily poetry time with Joel Gertner on YouTube.
That would be fun. That's an idea.
It could, how long does one of them things last? 15, 20 seconds? You know what I mean? Just a little blurb for the day. Poetry of the day with Joel Gertner.
That's an idea. I'm going to get on that. I like that. I've done a lot of poetry. I mean, I never deign to call it poetry. Like I said, I just call it whatever it is. It usually looks like chicken scratch on a notebook that's on my nightstand that I write at like 3:30 in the morning. If, like, I had, like, one of those, sometimes you eat dinner too late. You have, like, an indigestion bad dream. You got to get up. You got to pee. Oh, my God, you got to feed the cat now. So I don't actually call it poetry. But then if you're going to call it poetry and invite me onto your podcast as a guest, then now, like I say, I don't like to try to get too cocky about my own material and my career. But if it's poetry, now I agree with you. I should go online, whether it's something that I could directly monetize or not. And I should just...
Absolutely.
Poetry is not... Here's the thing. All these things in the notebook, this poetry is not going to tell itself. You know what I mean?
Right.
I've got to tell it.
I mean, nothing for nothing.
I have to be the best. It's got to come through me.
People have put together those montage videos of you, of doing those things, and how many thousands of views have they gotten?
That's crazy. And I think WWE's got an entire department devoted to taking stuff like that down. So that's the stuff that actually makes it through, too.
Right.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool to think about. Not that I've ever really thought about it, right? Like, to any kind of level. Like, oh, man, I mean, and that stuff violates copyright law. Like, somebody's getting paid somewhere to even take stuff like that down. Like, I never think about stuff like that. That would be very, very arrogant. But yeah, but it is true, though.
Yeah.
It is true. You know what they say in
here's
Texas?
The one.
In Texas, they
What's
say
that?
It ain't brag if it's fact.
It's not bragging, it's what?
It ain't brag if it's fact.
There you go.
But they also say everything's bigger. They also say everything's bigger in Texas. And I was with a woman one time down there touring, and she told me that her husband's was not bigger than mine. So, so you can't believe everything you hear from those Texans, but whatever. Neither here nor there.
So, and that was another question I actually had was, most of your poetry was very sexual. Were you starting to get a lot of, as they are doing in the wrestling business, the rats? Were they coming out of the woodwork trying to pursue you to find out if this poetry of yours was true?
For me? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Of course.
You're acting
well, I mean,
for me?
Listen, not all of that should be attributed to my winning personality and, cherubic smile, charisma, sense of humor, good nature. Not all of that, you can't pin all of it on that. A lot of it's the fact that sometimes young women they kind of gravitate or magnetize to people who are on television, I think, is an aspect of it, Some of it's fame-based, you know what I mean? And I would use that sometimes to my, sometimes I'd be in the bar and, I'd go up to an attractive woman who I could see was, interested, and I would say, have you ever done a little television? And she might be like, well, no. And I'd be like, have you ever thought of letting a little television do you? That works every once in a while. You know what I mean? You know,
funny.
sometimes some of the best pickup lines are not Gertner, you know? Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
The good old days.
Yeah.
The good old days. So now here's something that always, like, intrigues me about, actually about anybody that gets into the situation where they're having, no matter what the level of fame is, like you said, you know, you had a 3-year contract, TNN, you know, stuff like that, and then when ECW, you know, goes under and closes, I mean, that was your livelihood, that was your job. What goes through your mind now? Like, oh fuck, like, what am I going to do?
Yeah, there's somewhere in between a little bit of that and a lot of that. I would be remiss. I'm going to get back to this, I promise you. I would be remiss if I didn't put a bow on our last segment that just finished up. Okay. A very, very wise wrestling veteran who came in and did a while with us, like a year or however long it was, who will remain nameless. One of the things I learned from him that was super important is that when you're opening your hotel room door and there's a gaggle of like 10 or 15 beautiful young women, the appropriate way to address that situation is, all right, listen, none of y'all can be first, but one of y'all can be next. That's what you're supposed to say. Just so you know.
Just by the way you said that, I'm going to say Tommy Rich.
It could be. It could be. I'm neither going to confirm nor deny.
Just by the southern draw.
I'm not going to confirm nor deny, but it's quite possible. But yeah, when ECW closed down, you know, it was a shock because it was my dream job. So it's kind of like, you know, you just have to figure out, you know, where next, where from here, you know. I think the Latin is best. In Latin, it's quo vadimus. And it's like, all right, where are we going? So that's it. That's kind of the situation you're in. You know, you go from 5 1/4 years of status quo to quo vadimus. And it's,
right.
You know, it gives you time to kind of think. And it's very different from, you know, at that point towards the end, instead of doing like single shots, like maybe just ECW Arena, or some weekends were like a Friday, Saturday, towards the end in like 2000, we were doing like triple shots and quadruple shots.
Right.
So we were having like on average like, you know, about 15 shows a month. So it was, you know, coming to every other day, even though it wasn't formatted as every other day, but it was, you know, it was a lot of shows a month. So then, you know, what happened towards the end was, I remember at that last pay-per-view, the January 2001 pay-per-view, you know, we would always talk about scheduling kind of, you know, what day, what time, maybe, which was always flexible, though it got changed a lot, like everything did. But, you know, we would talk about scheduling for production at the studio in Westchester, New York. And because I know you guys, there's also a Westchester in Pennsylvania. And, yeah. And so, you know, Paul caught me coming out of the war truck, the production truck, and I was coming down the steps of it. He was about to be going up the steps of it. And so we crossed paths, and I was going back into the building. He was going into the truck. And we were talking about production. I may have asked about production, or he may have brought it up. I don't remember that. But what I do remember is he was like, well, there's going to be, I'll get back to you on that. There's going to be a little bit of downtime. And that was, you know, that was different, you know, because we did production every week, because we had TNN every week.
Right.
At that point, I think we didn't have TNN anymore. I think I was joining Joey on Hardcore TV and syndication. But anyway, that week, you know, coming out of the truck, he had said that, you know, we weren't doing necessarily production work that week. And so, yeah, you know, things just started to happen in a certain, you know, in a certain direction, you know, with a certain picked up frequency. And you kind of, we all saw at different times because we all did different things for the company. We all kind of
Right.
saw the writing on the wall, so to speak, at different times. And it's, but you have to adapt and adjust. And, it's like everything in wrestling is like everything in life. And in life, there's going to be an obstacle. And it's a zero-sum game, you know what I mean? It's binary. You never really ever share the spotlight with an obstacle. You're either going to get the better of it or it's going to get the better of you. So you do what you have to do in life. You just adapt and adjust.
Right. So let me get Mr. Jannetty involved here because he is sitting there. Jannetty, I know you had some questions for Joel.
Yeah, that was sort of question. I saw something, and Bay can attest. I really don't pay attention to Facebook all that often. My news feed is such filled with crap anymore. It's sad. But I did see something that you posted up about the very first title of ECW coming. The 25th anniversary is coming.
Yeah. Late April, yeah.
But I sat there.
You're going to be there, yeah? Both of you guys are going to be there, yeah?
Well, yeah, absolutely. But what I was more wondering is, rather than to celebrate the first ECW title a month earlier, the 25th of February is a Saturday night. It's 25 years to the day of the very first ECW match.
Is this something that happened at, like, Michael Jack's sports bar?
Yeah. That was the
Is this like the first ever match in Eastern Championship Wrestling in the record books where Jimmy Jannetty went to a draw with Stevie Richards?
Absolutely.
I've seen people say that it was 20 minutes. I've seen a couple of different times. Do you remember? Because now that I have you on as a guest, I figure I'll turn the tables here and ask you, how long was that match?
The match, I'll be honest with you, it was supposed to go 20 minutes. That was the Broadway. If it didn't, it was maybe 19. But yeah. And Stevie complains that I beat him up the entire match. 20 minutes.
Do you want to hear something Do you want to hear something that's completely freaky?
Yeah.
All right. 3 hours ago, between like 6:30 and 7:30 p.m., I was taping an episode of my podcast, the 69-Minute Eargasm, and my guest was Stevie Richards. We were talking about his wrestling career and how he came into the business, and he mentioned starting out in TWA and then very quickly moving over to ECW and having his first match at MJ Sports Bar. Can you imagine that? 3 hours ago on my podcast.
That's funny. As a matter of fact, Jannetty used to train. He was training me and Richards together.
That's amazing. Yeah, Stevie told a lot of cool stories. He was talking about working with Crybaby Waldo and lots of cool stuff.
Yeah, we had a great time then. And unfortunately, a lot of times when people talk about ECW, and they've just recently started even getting back to where like the original champions, Jimmy Snuka, Johnny Hotbody, and so forth, are being now canonized into the ECW deal, but they don't go back, even further to the start of it. And most of those stories, a lot of that stuff is just not talked about. Like Little Guido was an ECW original. Before Little Guido, he went in as Damian Stone.
And he's one of the first people that I met coming into the business because we used to both do shows at the Lower East Side Wrestling Gym in Manhattan, which was kind of my home base, my school, my gym. Like when I talked about earlier how I took that one wrestling class and then realized it wasn't for me, it was at the Lower East Side Wrestling School, and that's where, they had a once-monthly show. It was almost more like a recital. It was really kind of bootleg. It was really kind of for friends and family of the workers to get, some practice in, and then whoever else from the neighborhood would be willing to come and give like a $5 or $10 donation or whatever. And Guido was already on TV doing stuff like ECW, IWCCW. Jason Knight is another example. He was on TV doing enhancement at WCW, working against Sting one day, and then, popping into, the ground floor of this housing project and then doing this, kind of bootleg show with just, kind of students and, indie up-and-comers and stuff. So, yeah, so that's where I know, Guido from, over 25 years now. But, yeah, a lot of people would be surprised at who were ECW originals and came through ECW.
Right. Yeah, it's, even, before Taz himself, before Taz was 3 letters and 1 man, he was, he's the Tazmaniac. He was the tag team champion.
That's right.
They don't talk about that. They don't really run with those things. A lot of those shows, I think I have videos somewhere, and I swear if I ever get the chance to dig them out, I'm going to put them on DVD. But some of those original shows, the commentary we missed. We would have loved to have had you as a commentator. What we had was Jay Sully and Stevie Wonderful, and that was just terrible. That was just terrible.
Well, here you go. Jannetty was the very first match in ECW history. I was the very first ECW TV match in history.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Before there was Chubby Dudley, there was the Hell Rider.
Yeah, that's awesome. The Hell Riders versus the Super Destroyers, I think, was the first match on TV.
Very nice. Very nice.
I love that. And see, we never get to talk about the dragon. Never get to talk about that. That was a great story.
Oh yeah.
Don't kill the dragon. Or what was it? Don't hit the dragon.
Yeah, if you hit the dragon, you're not getting paid, and we are never coming back here again. There was a club down on Delaware Avenue in Philly, Joel. It was where I don't know if you ever heard of we used to do these shows outside there, and they had like a luau type setup thing with the huts and all that. And there was the one where they did the pinfalls anywhere in the building, and Snuka pinned somebody in the pool.
Nice.
But they had an inside to it. I think it was like raining or the weather was cold at that point. And we were inside, and it was a nightclub, and it had like this giant dragon head. But the way the club was, the dragon head was literally going into the one side of the ring. So you couldn't run to one side of the ropes.
Mm-hmm.
Very
and
cool.
what was the first? And it wasn't now. It wasn't. At some point, somebody killed the dragon. That was the terrible part. I forget who it was, but somebody ran into the dragon.
That's awesome.
I think it was called the Aztec Club. I forget what it was called.
Yeah. But my point with all that was that Stevie and I had talked, and there was somebody that was going to promote a match February 25th and was going to have our rubber match.
Nice.
So to speak. So, I heard you talking about that, and I was like, oh, well, let's do an anniversary for the very first match. We should do that.
Hell yeah. Well, there's going to be something going on. The details now are pretty limited. But yeah, something's going to be going on in late April to celebrate what is, I guess, universally received as the anniversary of ECW. I think it corresponds with, for whatever reason, like the 3rd live event. Maybe that's like when around the time that the company was actually incorporated on paper or something. Like maybe the first 2 shows for wrestling creative purposes were done under the Eastern Championship Wrestling banner, but maybe it didn't, become a viable company, whatever. So I guess in late April is when it started in 92, which means that late April coming up is 25 years. In September, I saw Todd Gordon at the convention at the arena, and I was just looking at stuff, and I was like, hey, you know, the 25th anniversary of Eastern Championship Wrestling is coming up. He's like, yeah, when is it? I don't know. I was like, well, it's coming up because 92. So 92, 17. I was like, I don't know exactly when it is. You? He's like, he kind of, you know, because it depends how you measure, right? Like, what's the anniversary? Let's just say. So we looked it up on Wikipedia, and it said, like, last week of April, like the 25th. I was like, April 25th. He's like, well, look it up on a calendar for next year. So I looked it up. It's like a Tuesday. Yeah, it's midweek. I was like, I don't know, Todd. It's, you know, whatever it is, Tuesday, Thursday. He's like, oh. I was like, I don't know, a weekend surrounding it. So I put up on Facebook, hey, who'd be into a 25th anniversary of ECW? So my Facebook lights up with basically like 75 people expressing some kind of interest, and 50 of them basically saying, the moment you say this show is happening, I'm traveling and I'm buying the ticket. So I share the feedback with Todd by, like, Facebook Messenger. I'm like, so, like, you know, what do we do now? He's like, Gertner, like, what are you doing? He's like, I've had members of the original Eastern Championship roster reaching out to me, asking me for spots on a show that isn't even happening yet. So between that and the feedback, I was like, well, Todd, so what do you want to do? He's like, what can we do? We have to run a show. All right. So it seems like the show is happening. What's crazier even than that is that I reached out to Roger at 2300 Arena and asked for that date, the weekend, that's the last weekend in April. And he goes, it's already booked. The good news is it's booked by a wrestling company, and, like, this is probably, and I guess since it's about 4 months away, it's probably not so taboo. But, I mean, the exclusive is, you know, these details are the farthest we've gotten in putting it out there. But I'll let you guys know tonight that you know, the people who have the lock on that weekend and got it before us, I have no idea whether they just happened to get that date or whether they knew it was the 25th anniversary weekend and were planning something anyway. Right. But now them and me and Todd's side of it and Roger, everybody's going to work together in putting together the ECW 25th reunion. So it's going to be something huge, and we hope that every single person that can be there is there. And Jimmy, like, any video that you have of the stuff, even that's pre-TV, so that, like, maybe it's not even on the network, let's talk, you know, off the podcast. And if you can get us any of that kind of stuff for the purposes of the reunion, you know, we'll have whoever winds up being in charge of the production of that stuff, whether it's Roger's in-house people or whoever, you know, we'll have them, you know, put that into a video package. We'd really appreciate using that. And again, I mean, you know, it's obviously, it's understood that you guys are, we'd love for both of you to be there.
Well, thank you.
That's my birthday, too.
Is it? Well, I can tell you, honestly,
April 25th.
what I believe the April date coincides with is the very first when ECW champion was crowned, when Snuka was crowned champion.
That could be it. That's probably it then. That's probably why. The third show,
that's the April date.
When the world title started. Yeah, that could be it.
Right.
But, yeah, that's what Wikipedia says it is. So everybody's running with that.
Yeah, because that was that Tabor show, Bay.
Tabor Rams,
yeah, it was the Tabor show that there was like a big battle. There was 2 big battle royals, and they did a battle royal because there were so many guys.
Right.
They did the battle royal, and then the last part of it was Hot Body and Snuka, and Snuka ended up winning the belt. That I think I do have on tape somewhere. I swear I do. I'll have to look. I'm digging out my tapes, but yeah. So.
That's awesome.
Now you got me thinking. So, but yeah, they were going to book something for that. So that's.
I do have somebody I want to bring on too. He's been waiting the whole hour. On our network, on our Totally Driven network, we actually have we got 2 wrestling shows. We have Pro Wrestling Now, and we also have the legendary Smith Hart, older brother of, you know, Brett and Owen. He does a show on our network, and the guy on the line, Mike Ferrara, he hosts both shows. He co-hosts with Smith, and he does his own show. And I know he's going to want you as a guest as well, but he's been waiting, and he wants to say hi. So, Mike, you're on the air, and you're on with Mr. Joel Gertner.
Joel,
my name is Magic Mike, National Lie. The women love me, easy as pie. They know me as a thriller, but at the end of the day and night, I'm the original peach killer.
Nice. Oh, man, I got to keep my game stepped up. Somebody's coming for my spot.
See that?
Nice. Yeah, good stuff, bud.
No sleeping on the job, Gertner.
Joe Gertner, it's an honor, my friend. How are you, buddy?
I'm good, dude. How are you?
Man, I got to just tell you, I was at the last ECW Guilty as Charged, and all I remembered was your opening promo, brother. It was great.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Also, Bay was saying that I host 2 shows. I'm actually, I do host Pro Wrestling Now with Magic Mike Ferrara. And Bay, by the way, it's a year. It's my anniversary coming up, so I'm with you guys a year. Thank you very much for that.
Oh, you're very welcome.
And then, of course, I got the gig with Smith Hart, which I never thought I would. When they actually wrote me and asked me if I wanted to do, something with like Smith, like work the board, I was like, sure. And then they got up to, I forget how many episodes. They got up to maybe 20, I think and then, Smith was out of a co-host, and then one day I just started doing the co-host, and it's kind of working, and I like Smith, and Smith's a great guy, so.
Very cool.
Yeah, it works out good. Works out good.
Very cool.
Very cool. Cool.
I actually have Smith on with me, actually. He's on the phone now, I think, too.
Smith, are you there?
Yeah. Hello, Bay. This is Smith Hart. Go ahead.
Oh, stop, Mike. Come on.
I wanted to talk to you about something, but I guess I'll have to talk to you later. Hey, Smith, this is my time now, buddy. Well, Mike, I just wanted to tell a story. Smith, we have no time. Okay, sorry. All right, well, you got to tune in. You want to hear a story? You got to tune into the Hart Grapevine. He's got plenty of stories.
Was that really Smith Hart, or was that like Magic Mike? That didn't sound like Calgary to me. That sounded like Winnipeg section of Manayunk or something. Come on, bud. Was that really Smith Hart? Listen, I've done Heartbeat Radio with Bob Johnson, co-hosting alongside the great Bruce Hart. And that show is always a blast. And I promise you, if you do a poor rendition of a Smith Hart impersonation ever again, I will have my close personal friend, because I've done his podcast twice, Bruce Hart, and he's going to put you in a sharpshooter, brother.
I love that. I love when they put me in a sharpshooter. I'll tell you one thing, though, about Bob Johnson. I did a Hart family Thanksgiving, which you guys can hear on this network. It's on demand. And I got to, not only am I close now with Bob Johnson, and we talk, and he sends me guests, and he actually got me Ken Patera, but he's been really, really cool. So, I got to talk to Bruce, and I like Bruce as well. As obviously, I got to say it, I was a big Bret Hart fan growing up. So when I got the chance to do the Smith Hart show, it was like, and I'm hearing the stories about Andre the Giant flopping around as Smith's going 100 miles, or the stories about Stu wrestling the bear and the tiger. Actually, this past Tuesday night on the show, I had 2 of my good friends on, and they were listening to the stories, and they were eating it up. They loved the stories. And that wasn't a poor Smith Hart. That was a good.
It was mediocre. It was more mediocre than poor. It was all right. It was it was kind of sub-average. It was all right. Hey.
Yeah, it was kind of me doing Stu kind of.
You mentioned Ken Patera.
Yep.
Have you ever debated Ken Patera?
Have I ever what?
Debated Ken Patera.
Oh, I thought you said dated. I'm telling you, he's not my type, brother.
Debated. I'll tell you why I asked. Because
Go ahead, brother.
Bobby the Brain Heenan has debated Ken Patera. I watched it when I was 12 years old on TV. It was awesome.
That's pretty cool. No, I haven't debated. Ken Patera, but we got to pick his brain, and I was actually happy because he told a story about Bobby the Brain Heenan that he had told on another podcast, with Ric Flair. So I think it's awesome. It's like when you see somebody in the movies and they do a move in the movie, and then they go and they do the same move like in your movie. It's like an honor, So I got to listen to Ken Patera talk about Bobby the Brain Heenan and tell some stories, and I mean, he was great. I mean, I wouldn't want to go head to head with Ken, but I tell you though, it was an honor.
You couldn't. Here's why: because you shouldn't ever debate Ken Patera. Ask me why, or this whole bit will fail.
Why?
Because if you ever did, he would flip the podium over on you and go after you. Because that's exactly what he did to Bobby the Brain Heenan. Because I saw it when I was 12 years old on television. It was awesome.
I gotta YouTube that.
Wait a minute. Now, real quick, I have to say, real quick, I have debated Ken Patera.
You have?
Yes. Bay, you remember years ago for Joel?
I think that was before my time. What when you were doing the Piper thing? Let me say something real quick. I just want to say I know our next guest, Josh, is on hold. Josh, I see you. Just please bear with me for a few more minutes. Jannetty, that was before my time. That was when you were doing the Piper gimmick.
Joel, what we used to do before actually I started wrestling in the ring. Joel used to bring in guys for luncheons, question and answer sessions, so forth and so on. And the things that I used to do is sometimes I would dress up as Roddy Piper and do a Piper's Pit with some of the people. And, I actually got to sit there and go toe-to-toe with Ken Patera. There was a couple, Dr. D, David Schultz, interesting people. But, so I have debated Ken Patera.
That's awesome.
So, just a show. All right.
Hey, I got a quick question for you. Did he flip the podium on you?
No, he did not. I dropped the microphone and walked away.
He dropped the mic before Mike, it was even cool to drop the mic.
That's right. Mike, and all the times I think I miss you, and then I hear you and realize I don't. Even my dog doesn't miss you.
You never even met me. This is the first time What? This is the first time I'm actually talking to you, Joel.
Never, ever, ever miss you.
Joel, you never met me.
It wasn't Joel. That was Jimmy, moron.
What? Who?
Oh.
That was Jimmy's mic.
Joel. I'm sorry, Joel. I'm sorry, Jimmy.
That was me. Wait. For the record, there's too much confusion. Just so everybody knows. For the record, so everybody's clear. When Jimmy was talking about Joel bringing people in, he was talking about the other Joel G, Joel Goodhart, not me, Joel Gertner. And also to clarify, the canine voice that you heard that doesn't miss Magic Mike, that was, believe it or not, me doing an impression of Jimmy Jannetty's dog doing an impersonation of Smith Hart as performed by Magic Mike. Not missing.
Oh, I didn't know who said he didn't miss me. I don't know what. I was wondering. I didn't catch the. That was a good impersonation, by the way.
Well, you're killing me, Smalls. But if you don't know, now you know.
There you go, Mike. I'll hook you up with Joel, and this way Joel can come and visit you with Smith Hart, and you guys can do your show. I'm gonna hang up on you now because I have to.
No problem. Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Go on to my next guest. You too, Mike.
You got it.
All right.
You asked for that.
So Joel, I want to thank you. I mean, we could sit and talk all night. We'll have to do it again because I some things I wanted to talk to you about that we never got to talk about. I want to talk naturally. I want to talk food, diet. When you coming back down to Philly? Because we got to go eat.
Talking diet with me is perfect. That's because you don't get a body like this by accident. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'll be in Philly.
You'll be in Philly when?
I out-nice guyed you. Yeah. You see that? That awkward pregnant pause of 7 seconds, that worker, brother thing where we each waited for the other one to speak, and then you went ahead and spoke first. That's the way it should be. I'm
go.
the guest in your house.
See that?
I out nice guide you. I love it when that happens. I'm always in Philly. I've got fam in Philly. I've got best friends. My best man's from Philly. I've got tons of fam in Philly. It's like 99 miles away. It's not like it's not very far. I'm there all the time. Even after the one-man show that I did a few weeks ago, I'm still welcome in Philly. So that probably means I'll always be.
There you go. Well, yeah, next time you come down, let me know so we can go eat. We can go eat and discuss diet.
And we're going to go eat? Where are we going to go eat?
Yeah.
Where?
I'm good anywhere. Where do you want to go?
You want to go to Tony Luke's for like a pepperoni pizza ribeye, sharp wit? Like all the philosophers.
I'll tell you what.
Sharp wit.
You get that, and I'm going to get roast pork with broccoli rabe, with sharp provolone, and we'll split.
That's the other good one.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! And I could pay for both of us and out nice guy you again.
Oh, there you go. Hey,
brother, please. Oh my gosh! Don't threaten me with a good time, my friend.
Joel, I want to thank you. And before I let you go, I'm going to put you on the spot now. I always have people cut IDs for me, and I'm going to need you to do a well. This is Joel. Okay. Throw one of your classic poetry lines in there, Gertner, and you're listening to Totally Driven Radio.
Okay.
Well. It is I, the lyrical, miracle, the sexual, intellectual, the cunning linguist, and the quintessential stud muffin, Joel. I'm on the air with the crew of Totally Driven. The dream I'm chasing. The life I'm living. And when I come to Philly, the women come to me. It's given. That's all I can tell you now. Until you check out the next episode of my podcast, the 69-minute Eargasm with guest Stevie Richards. Keep listening and have yourself an eargasm, Gertner. You see what I did there?
Oh, Joel. I saw you did.
Even though I was a guest in your house, I nice guyed you guys twice. So then I turned around like any good heel manager would do, and I put my shit over, and I got my shit in at the end.
The best part of that whole thing was I heard the tongue wagging.
Yeah. That's the moneymaker right there, yeah.
I know, too funny. Joel, thank you again. Let's do this again. We'll set it up for early next year to do it again and do some more talking and reminiscing and discussing food more next time.
It was awesome. And if the deal is on the table to go to Tony Luke's and I pay for all of us, then I swear by goodness, I mean it. Don't threaten me with a good time, and I will see you there unless you see me first.
Sounds like a plan. Just let me know when I'm there. You know that. All right. Take care, Joel.
You got it.
Hey,
thank you, guys.
Just plug where everybody can find you real quick, too.
I work for Wildcat Sports Pro Wrestling, which is run by Luke Hawks. So I'm in New Orleans for their live events every 4 to 8 weeks and to do post-production every 4 to 8 weeks. Right now it is available exclusively over-the-air broadcast and on cable on the MyTV affiliate in New Orleans. So if you have access to WUPL Channel 54, only on television, it's not available on the internet right now. If you have access to that, you can watch the shows. If you live nearby, come to the events. Otherwise, you can keep up with it on their website and at their Facebook. I have an appearance in January in the New York City area in Queens. It's going to be Bill Alfonso, the Blue Meanie, and myself. We're going to be doing a meet and greet and then a VIP dinner. That's, I want to say, January 17th. It's on the mid-January Thursday, and you can find out about that on my social media. I've got Stevie's podcast. The podcast of mine that he's a guest on is going to be dropping in the next couple of days, so you can follow the 69-Minute Eargasm on Facebook and on Twitter. And you can find me on Twitter at Stud Muffin Says. You can find me on Instagram at Quintessential Stud Muffin, and you can find me on Facebook as well.
Awesome.
And the ECW 25th anniversary is going to be in late April at 2300 Arena on Swanson.
Swanson and Rittner, the infamous corner.
Yes, sir. Used to be on Rittner. Now it's on Swanson. All the doors got moved. All the walls got shifted.
Yeah.
Part of the dressing room is in 4-month bills. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's a whole new thing now. Cool. Very cool. Yeah, we'll talk more, and, hope to see you soon, Joel.
You got it. Thank you, guys.
Take care. All right, well, there he goes. The one and the only Mr. Joel Gertner. And